Here to discuss this incredibly complex subject is Will Todman, a Middle East Program Fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Thank you for joining us so much. Why are we seeing this escalation now? How is this latest round of violence different from past conflicts?
Well, there's been a few factors, I think, which have converged at the moment, which really has caused a very sharp heightening of tensions. One of the reasons is that there has been an ongoing dispute over the eviction of 6 Palestinian families in the Sheikh Jarrah area of East Jerusalem. And this made it all the way to the Israeli Supreme Court, which was due to issue a decision this week. Now, the protests against these evictions had largely been peaceful, but started to become a little violent in the last week or so. But then there were several other events in the calendar which unfortunately have converged to heighten tensions even more. One is that each year ultra nationalists in Israel march through the streets of the old city in Jerusalem through Muslim majority areas and celebrate Israel's victory in the 1967 war and the capturing of Jerusalem. Now, each year this causes tensions, but this was due to happen on Monday. And then another factor, I think, which increased tensions was what we saw at Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is the third holiest site for Muslims. We have just finished the month of Ramadan, which is the holiest month for Muslims, and hundreds of Palestinians had gathered to worship for one of the holiest nights in that month. And the exact causes of why violence broke out remain unclear, but the result was that Israeli police fired rubber bullets, they used stun grenades and tear gas inside the mosque itself, leaving hundreds of Palestinians injured. So in the context of all of these different factors adding to tensions, then Hamas decided that it would join the fray and fire rockets at Jerusalem, which was the first time that had happened in 7 years. And then, as we've seen, this has escalated really significantly.
Do you think that there is more support for the Palestinians in this conflict as compared to previous ones?
I do. I think that particularly in the United States, I think in the Democratic Party, we're seeing more vocal support for Palestinian rights. And some members of Congress, I think, have been particularly vocal about this. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have spoken much more vocally. But I think a lot of President Biden's supporters in the Democratic Party had hoped that his administration would take, in their eyes, a more balanced stance in the conflict, that the traditional U.S. unwavering support for Israel would be tempered, and some pressure would be placed on Israel to limit the abuses of Palestinian rights and their heavy-handed response that is so typical in these clashes. So I think that from that perspective, yes, there is some more support for Palestinians. But President Biden has really been keen, I think, to keep this conflict at an arm's length and not to get involved. In part, that's because he doesn't want to be focusing on the Middle East. He has made it very clear that his foreign policy priorities are competing with great power rivals, so that's predominantly China and Russia. But I think also because of the splits in the Democratic Party, and he doesn't want to further these splits by taking a stance which he knows will annoy one faction or another.
Very clear. Thank you so much. Will Todman, a Middle East Program Fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies on such a complex issue.